I'm Gabe Guetta, CEO and co-founder of Salus. We have about 9,100 companies using the software, about 600 customers, 250,000 workers with profiles interacting with the mobile app or what we call a progressive web app, 80,000 job sites across North America. We're a safety software for construction, specifically designed for the field of construction. My background is not software. It's not safety. I started as a laborer in construction at 18 and actually working for a general contractor in Vancouver, Canada, that specialized in high-rise construction. My vision for my career at that time was to become a carpenter and then a superintendent. I got distracted about 2 years into that journey and went to work for a subcontractor that specialized in window installation and high-rises. And I started as a service kind of tech, to running kind of a service team, to then working my way up to running that company, partnership role with the founder of that company. I was in the industry for 15 years, and I can say that 13 years into it, 14 years into it even, 14 and a half even, there is no plans of starting a software company. I didn't even own a laptop, to be honest. Like software, we didn't use software in our company. We were labor-based, installing windows, we had tight schedules, and to be honest, it wasn't that we weren't tech savvy. We had state-of-the-art tools. We were always using cutting-edge tools, or just the way that we're a very innovative company because you have to be on the spot solving different problems constantly for all these different projects. We did about 5 to 8 high-rises a year, but software wasn't solving a problem for us. It was adding more time or more problems. That's the way we looked at it. It was going to add pain to the field. So what changed? Safety changed. I remember it. One of our foremen called me and said, "We can't go on this job site." I was like, "How did you already get in trouble? We haven't even started the job." And he's like, no. Like, they won't let us on site without a safety program. I was like, "Oh, we got one of those. Just show it to them." He's like, "I did." They said it's made up of 7 different companies' safety programs, and this isn't yours. This is one of the biggest GCs in Canada that was not letting us on site. And we'd worked with them before. We brought in a safety consultant, and they had to create a company-specific safety program for us. But then we had to prove that we were following. And that meant having to get all this paperwork done, tracking certificates. We had to get 55-year-old window installers to fill out forms for the first time in probably 20 years. That was a very difficult journey. We ended up bringing in-house safety. We had about 100 employees, and it was a transformation that was painful, but we weren't getting progress draws without this. More and more general contractors were jumping into this to protect themselves and everything else. And it was hard. But I think the biggest transformation for me was I started to go through this evolution of understanding safety at a deeper level. And it wasn't that, 12 years of working in the industry, it wasn't that I didn't work safe or we didn't care about our employees or the team that was at risk. We just didn't know any better. We didn't know, right? And so what I learned is I learned a lot more about safety. I learned a lot more about the risk to the business and the risk to myself personally. And what I found is that I was losing sleep at night now, not over the schedule, not over what workers do we have, who can go to what site. I was losing sleep over, do we have a 20-year-old window installer that's on the side of the building tomorrow where their fall protection training expired 3 months ago? Because I got 5 calls from our customers about this in the last month. And we actually don't know because the certificate's on them or maybe loosely tracked in an Excel or 4 Excel sheets. And thinking like, well, what happens to the company if something happens? What happens to me? I could have been criminally charged if there's negligence, right? That's the mindset that I was in. And then there was an incident that happened on one of the jobs where a 25-year-old foreman and his lead hand dropped a 10-foot steel L angle from the 14th floor of a building into a Whole Foods parking lot. And I remember still to this day, him calling me as he was running down the stairs because he didn't see it land. He thought he killed someone. So he's running down 14 floors this whole time thinking he killed someone. Didn't, missed. There's an investigation. Company got written up, they got written up. I personally got written up for that miss because we had brought them from a different territory and they didn't have the right forms and they were missing stuff. And it was a mess. So that's what pushed me and our business to be like, this is a failure. We got to learn and elevate ourselves from this failure. We couldn't go back to paper. It was too reactive. And so that's where the journey to start Salus started. How did I get past the technical side, seeing how I didn't even own a laptop when I started the company? A good friend of mine who I played hockey with, went to high school with, still play hockey with, classic Canadian story. He knew how to build mobile apps. He knew how to build web apps. but we never scaled a software company before. He had never scaled one. I had never scaled one. To be honest, though, that was actually really good at the beginning. It protected us from distraction. It wasn't about how do we get thousands of companies to use this? How do we get investment? How do we go, like all of the things that distract, I think, early stage companies. How do you go from no revenue to $1 million in a certain time frame? Like that's all stuff that you need to pay attention to eventually. But at the beginning, all we cared about was I knew the industry. I knew how the industry worked. And I knew that if we built a software, it had to work in the field. We actually didn't care about the safety professional and the office at the beginning and the administrative stuff. We took a mobile app and we said, if this can't get used and fully adopted in the field, none of that other stuff matters. And so all we did at the beginning was focus. We launched a mobile first with plans of the web application and just sat in the field, making sure that we kept iterating and getting that adoption, and then started working up to the office. And we actually had 300 customers across Canada before we had any reporting capabilities. We didn't have dashboards, nothing. And when I think back, I'm like, how did we get some of these companies were like 800 person companies, hundreds of thousands of forms being submitted and a lot of usage, and they couldn't report on anything. But because the field adoption was so good, companies were willing to look past that. Now we have all of that stuff. And to be honest, 80% of the product work we're doing now is mostly for the administrative requirements to scale across these massive companies that can really get the value from that. How do you get early adopters? How do you get customers to start using your product? I think the reality is it's different for every product. Our product, the good part and the bad part about our product is it's safety focused, and safety touches every size company depending on the vertical of construction and your risk exposure. Like renovation companies doing wood frame renovations, unfortunately, in this day and age, are still not really doing safety, right? They don't have hard hat steel toe boots even. But when you're looking at a high-rise site or some of those higher risk infrastructure projects or whatever it may be, you could have a 20-person company and they are still following these safety procedures and have pain from that. I had my network of, probably 100 different companies, but to be honest, you go through that network pretty quick. And so, yes, that did help me at the beginning to get, and even the company that I was running before, like I didn't leave my company right out of the gate. So we were able to test it with the company I was running, but that only gets you so far. And to be honest, you're in a box, right? Like I was doing window installation. I didn't know much about safety. I knew a lot more than a year or so before, so I could do enough to be dangerous. But to be honest, one of our first legitimate customers was a company called Viaduct Sheet Metal. And I remember sitting in their office and we were up against companies that were 10 years old. Viaduct Sheet Metal said, we just went to this other company and they had this nice flashy office in Yaletown and they looked at the product and it was okay. And we're coming in a company of 2 employees, no office. But the way that we were just authentic and real with them. And one of the things that never resonated with me and still doesn't is the smoke and mirrors behind software. And so we were just real about it. We just said, look, this is who we are. This is what we think. This is our vision. And this is what our product can do right now. And we're going to show it to you and get you to start using it. There's limitations, but we're going to work really closely with you and iterate fast. And I remember that meeting because that's the first company that took a risk with us. And they were like a 150 person sheet metal company that was very well known in the market. What I did at the beginning, I said, I don't even want money right now. One of the things that we did is I said, we'll do a 7-month free trial, no strings attached. I didn't even have contracts at the beginning. And I said, just use our product. And after 6 months, if you like it, then sign up with us. Because to me, it was not about the money at the beginning. It was the usability and if the product's used and it solves a problem, people will pay you for that, but it has to have a value exchange. You care that you're trying to solve their problems and not just trying to push some initiative down their throat. But if you're actually trying to solve their problems and create that value exchange, because I think that's what's missing a lot. There's such a gap between the office and the field. And these initiatives, a lot of times it feels like it's just for the office or just for that tech company, and they're missing that mark on like, yeah, sure. The field probably sees all the value that gets to the office, the data, whatever their vision is. It's like, well, where's the value for me? What are the problems you're actually solving for me? Because on site, things don't revolve around a monthly like turnaround. So it's like minutes, hours. Like 1 week on site is like, you can make or break a job in a week. Anytime you start a company, along the way, there's a level of luck that you need, right? Part of it is just this natural evolution. I would have never started a software company if safety didn't change from more PPE focused and kind of, there's incident management for the bigger companies, but honestly, we were a 100-person company. I don't think we ever did a risk or an incident investigation prior to this enforcement of compliance-based safety and bringing in a consultant. What changed was that change that pushed me to have this pain. The other thing that changed, so there's safety software out there, tons of safety software out there, but mostly focused on office stuff like incident management, claims management. And so what they were starting to launch right when we came out was their mobile apps. After having 10 or 12 years of not having one, it's very hard to take that type of a mindset and that software is more legacy to push it into a mobile app, where we started mobile first. So out of the gates, we were able to create a cutting edge mobile app that beat any company out there. We couldn't do any of the incident stuff that they did, but the pain that companies were starting to have was actually in the field. But even that, the headwinds that we started to face, and we still face to this day, is it's almost like safety was just reborn. Paperwork in the field for safety has only been around for maybe 7 to 10 years, right? Max. And that's really with the bigger companies. Now, depending on the industry, you see a lot more of it, right? But at the beginning, that was very hard. We'd talk to companies. For one, field level workers were just starting to adopt smartphones in the field. So when we said, hey, we have an app, they're like, we're good with paper at the beginning. But I do think that because the companies out there, these competitors were starting to educate the market with us and lead, it really did raise the tide for everyone. Procore started to focus on safety. All these companies started to push safety as a narrative. Our competitor today is not other software companies. Our competitor is paper and inaction around health and safety. There's so much money being pumped into construction tech. 90% or 95% of that money goes to the office, but 80% of the workforce is in the field. Safety, in my opinion, is one of the first software that actually gets in the hands of the trade workers. So when I say we have 250,000 people using our product, we're not talking about people sitting in front of an office. We're talking about foremen in the field, superintendents, laborers, trade workers in the field that are interacting with our product. And to be honest, we're all like AI today. Everyone's focused on data and how to use AI. But most of the data they're talking about is coming from documents and in the office. Data's in the dirt. The gap between the office and the field is that we don't have real-time information on what's happening in the field. We take it from trade meetings that happen once a week or potentially daily updates to a certain level. But safety is designed to make people stop and think and break up complacency. So an ideal workflow for safety is that every worker on site is stopping and thinking before they do these tasks. And what these forms are designed to do is make them think of the things that they could be working on. So the data points that these forms are collecting is tremendous. They could be certificate management, they could be site inspections. All of these things have hundreds and hundreds of data points. We've collected over, I think, 11 million forms in our system. Each one potentially has 50 to 100 different fields in it, not to mention the metadata around it. And all of that is providing real accurate information from what's happening day in and day out on a job site, which a lot of it feels a little bit unstructured, and you can run great reporting from our system. But when you start to train AI from that and start to really push and find trends and just surface general information that you can pull forward through AI, it's incredible. And where we're going with this is we made a bet 7 years ago when we started that safety was a platform play, that we were going to go all in on safety and not get distracted by anything else. And safety has a seat at the table alongside project management, financials, and these other platforms. And we're sticking with that. We also have made a bet around AI that we're going all in, that vertical AI is, of course, there's general AI tools that are going to have value, but the future is in these vertically trained AI tools. Salus is building and is already in, I would argue, has the best safety AI tool on the market. And this Salus, what we're calling Salus IQ, is going to be so well trained from not just from our data, but from stuff that we're pulling from general information that ChatGPT can't get. Safety data sheets, OSHA regulations that are hidden behind PDFs, but past search filters that ChatGPT can't get to. When you train this, you create a product that turns into such an incredible safety assistant that empowers safety professionals, empower field level workers, but it's going to be very powerful and already is very powerful for those safety professionals. I think safety has gotten tremendously better over the last 10 years, but we've hit a plateau. And I think safety is broken to a certain extent. I think the pendulum has swung from protecting the worker and mentoring in the field to protecting the company. And now we have safety professionals, which is a new career path, right? Where there's hundreds of thousands of safety professionals now in the market, where 10 years ago there was a fraction of that. But their job predominantly is paperwork, tracking. Is this done? Is that checkbox done? Is checkbox safety? And if you ask any safety professional, that's the part of their job that they believe has no value and they hate it. And the reality is the workers in the field, when you ask them why they're filling these forms out, they say, oh, it's for the company, to protect the company. The reality is those forms are actually designed to protect them. They're supposed to break up complacency. But the value exchange isn't there between the worker and safety. They look at safety as a barrier to getting their work done. And it's a natural thing. Humans are time to value. I'm hired to build a wall. I'm a carpenter. All of a sudden you're stopping me and say, fill out this paperwork before you do that. I naturally look at it as this barrier. Safety powered by software, I believe, can change that value, intuitively reach for safety powered by software because they believe they get some value out of it. But in order to do that, we have to change the way safety is being done. It can't be this academic process where it's fill out this form exactly the way that we envision it, because that feels academic, right? Reading, writing, it's like a test. We learn through experience and other things. And human beings learn through micro-learning now. They don't learn through this process. We know it from social media. A paper form is very static, right? When you start going digital, you can add a 15-second video into that form when they hit, I'm working at heights or I'm working on a 20-foot ladder. Like have a 10-second video on ladder safety or something more interactive, separating basically 3 categories: the business, safety professional, and the field worker or trade worker. And if we can make the safety experience incredibly good for all of those, and the outcome of that is each one of them gets protected, then we've won. For any other founders out there, or just in general, there's so many, and it never changes, it never gets easier, right? The challenges and the problems you're solving just change. And I mean, now when you take a moment and look back, which every founder should, or every business should, because every person in the company, we're so heads down, grinding it out, go, 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 that you need to pause and look at what you've accomplished. And when you take the time to do that and force yourself to feel that accomplishment, because typically we just move the goalposts, it's impressive. The forward path is hard. There's so many ups and downs. Like now we're VC backed, right? We have hundreds and hundreds of customers across North America. We're breaking into new markets, and your team is growing, right? We have 55 employees now. We'll be looking to double that in the next year and a half, 2 years. It gets hard. It's not that everything is just unicorns and butterflies. And so I think what the biggest thing is keep putting one foot in front of the other. The hardest challenges you have to assess them, but don't get overwhelmed. Analysis paralysis, perfection is the enemy of progress. And so you have to continue to progress. The head of safety for one of the largest companies in the US, he turned to me and said, "What is good safety?" And I was like, oh, great. On the spot, right? And I took a second to think, and I think this actually goes past safety. When I think of safety across North America and all of our customers, or all the companies that are using our product, or everyone we've talked to, there's so many different companies at different levels of safety. And it doesn't mean one level is better than the other, because your risk exposure might be less or more. Everybody is also doing safety slightly different, and nobody is perfect. If you look at the regulations, It's just like law or HR or anything else. If you look at the regs and overlay it on your company and try to meet it perfectly, you're going to destroy your company. The only thing that matters with safety is progress. If you are constantly improving your culture, your safety program, everything else, you are winning. And that is what matters. And that goes to your business. The thing that I instill in our business and we embody as a culture is the status quo is not okay. We cannot be stagnant. Anytime we look at a department or something that we're doing and it isn't improving, or we feel like we're just coasting, it drives us crazy. And so we constantly have to be pushing for better, constantly improving, constantly innovating. And innovation is messy. Innovation means you have to progress, you have to break things, you have to take steps back to push forward. But we have to do that as a business and as an industry, or we are going to get past, right?